This is the Partner for Leads community podcast for small business owners and sales professionals. It's a podcast for those of you who want to build your business in a way that is all about relationships first. Welcome to episode 8. I am Roberto, and this is part 2 of my conversation with Philip VanDusen. I didn't know this was going to be a two-parter, but Philip has been doing some great work on YouTube. He was featured in episode 7 because he recently reached 10,000 email subscribers, something I really wanted to talk to him about. And he's also built a huge YouTube channel. He now has 128,000 subscribers. In this episode, he shares some real-world examples of how he's making video and personal branding work together. He also shares examples of how others are doing the same, and this is an episode that is worth taking notes on, particularly if you're getting started on YouTube or you've been thinking about getting started on YouTube. Okay, here is me and Philip VanDusen. Philip, welcome back to the podcast.
Hi, Roberto. Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for kind of making the suggestion last time we spoke. And you didn't make the suggestion, but you said, I really wanted to, after we recorded the last one, you said, I really wanted to talk about my YouTube channel, and I knew that was a good idea. After we spoke a little bit offline, and I had taken a look at your YouTube channel and went back to it, and when I started this podcast, and this is only going to be episode 8, by the way, but as fate would have it, when I started, I wouldn't have thought that this would be a conversation I was planning to do, and you and I were discussing before we hit record here that I think I know who the audience is for this podcast, and that may change, and we were going to talk a little bit about that, but I decided that, this would be a good topic, even if the audience that I believe I'm targeting today turns out to be that audience. I think they're going to be very interested in this too. So my first question for you is, in case they haven't listened to episode 7, and I hope you will go back where we talk about, if you're listening to this, where we talk about how Phil got to 10,000 email subscribers recently, which was really cool. In case you haven't listened to that, Philip, can you, for the benefit of the listeners for this episode right now, tell us who your target clients are?
I target most of my content to creative professionals and entrepreneurs. So instead of just saying designers, I'm a graphic designer and have a graphic design and strategy agency. Instead of just targeting to graphic designers, I also target to any creative professional. So they could be in sound, they could, be in music, they can be in video, they can be in animation, they can be in, development, web development, and entrepreneurs, of course, because I talk a lot about marketing topics, strategic branding topics that are all beneficial to anybody who has a business. And I try to focus on small to medium-sized businesses, so those are under $10 million a year, or solopreneurs, entrepreneurs who are, individual consultants or have their own consultancies. So those are my targets.
Excellent. I think that fits part, if not all, of who the audience is or will be for this podcast. So that's good.
Great. That works.
Now, you were really excited, understandably so, about your YouTube channel last time we spoke, and I'm sure before we spoke, but
sure.
2 things. So where are you at in terms of subscribers today?
I think I'm at about 128,000, something like that.
You are. So, as soon as I asked you, I'm like, well, I could have just said that. One thing I did want to ask, because I am stepping back into the pond or getting my feet wet again with YouTube, and I think a lot of people, I hear this talked about a lot, but I'd love to hear what you would say to what do you recommend for people that are getting started on YouTube, whatever their brand is. So sort of the generic, if I may use that term, getting started advice.
Sure. I think some of the things that are important are really some of the most important things in branding in general, which are, as you start to put your videos out on YouTube, you want to make sure that, when people are choosing a video to watch, they're many times, more than 50% of the time, looking at YouTube on their phone, or even if they're on a laptop, they are looking at an icon that can be, an inch by 3/4 of an inch in scale. And so you have to pay really close attention to your thumbnail artwork. And that is trying to make sure that the copy on it, the font on it, is very clear and legible. You don't put too much copy on it. You also want to try to brand it in some way. So as you start putting videos out and people start following you, you want them to be able to recognize that a video is yours very quickly. And so when I launched my channel, I developed a kind of a format for my thumbnails that had my brand colors in it and a particular layout. So I have a picture of myself always on the right-hand side, and the copy is on the left-hand side. And I use that template very, very.
Hey there, sorry about that. The internet, the router must just rebooted or something weird. So anyway, but I think we'll be okay. We were talking about the branding of your channel. You had just started getting into the template.
Yeah, so in general, when you set up your channel, you want to make sure that you have an artwork, brand artwork style. Chances are you have a social media presence in other places, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. And if you don't have there, an established kind of brand look and feel, a color palette, choice of fonts, photography style, some good photos of yourself, you want to make sure that you get those in place. And you want to make sure that your channel artwork, your banner, your avatar kind of match everything else across all of your brand touch points, your website, etc. So when people do go to your channel page and then possibly get driven somewhere else, like to your website or wherever you're else trying to drive traffic to from YouTube, that when they come across you there, you're going to have a similar look and feel. So you just want to make sure that you establish kind of a clear brand look and feel for your channel. Thumbnails, what else? And then, as you start recording your videos, depending on what types of videos you're doing, you want to have a certain kind of concept around, where you're going to be sitting, how you're going to be seen, your lighting, the type of sound quality, type of editing. You want to get a general ideas of those things as well.
Yeah, and for anyone who hasn't yet seen Philip's YouTube channel, it's Philip VanDusen, and I mention it now because I think that if you have gravitated to anyone on YouTube who has the branding thing down, you can take a look at what Philip's doing on his channel and see some common practices anyway. His face is on it, and as you're saying, you've got this look and feel, these brand colors and identity things going on. So that's good stuff. Do you have any tips on lighting, by the way? Again, sort of getting started.
Yeah, sure. I'm a big proponent, as I'm sure we've talked about before, of just starting. So you can have analysis paralysis or preparation paralysis, where you want to get everything just perfect before you start. And I found that just starting and evolving as you go along is kind of a better approach. And for anyone out there who's thinking of starting a YouTube channel, you're going to suck at the beginning, or depending on how you edit this for profanity, that no matter what, when you get to video 20 and you look back on video number 1, you're going to wonder how in the hell you ever thought you could post that. And that doesn't matter whether you have this completely planned out and the best lights and the best camera and the best mic, you are going to improve as you go along. So starting with what you have and improving as you need to over time is really the way to go. And I very much have lived that progression. I mean, I started off filming on a cheaper DSLR camera. My mic wasn't as good. My lights were kind of, harder to control or find consistency with. And to tell you the truth, when it comes to lighting, I changed my lighting setup probably 3 or 4 times in the 110 10 videos that I've put out. And some of my videos, the lighting's terrible. Some of my videos, I didn't get the settings on my camera right, or I didn't get the, settings on my lights right. And when I record videos, I batch record. So I write 4, I record 4, I edit 4, and then I schedule them to go out once a week for a month. So if I screw up, I screw up 4. And that's what I've done a few times. So, periodically I'll record 4 videos and spend a day, doing that, and then look back on the footage and realize that, it's not perfect. And many times, instead of going back and redoing it, in fact, I don't think I've ever gone back and redone it. I'll just post it and move on, and chalk it up to a learning experience. And, luckily it doesn't seem to have affected my viewership. And I consider myself kind of a living example of, practicing what I preach.
Yeah, and I've always thought that, and I know I've seen other personal brand entrepreneurs do the same, or anyone who's doing something on YouTube involving personal brand. I guess I just repeated myself, but that the early stuff is, assuming they stuck with it and got good, the early stuff is actually useful in helping others at some point if they decide to go down that route, because they can say, look, go back to video number 1 or whatever they think their worst video was, and look at how I started out. Am I correct in that you started about 2 years ago with a video on how to design a personal brand tutorial?
Yes, I'm currently a member of Chris Ducker's mastermind community called Youpreneur, and he actually asked me to produce a video on personal branding for his website, for the Youpreneur website. And so I did a half-hour-long video. It was the very first video I did, and it was filmed with my webcam, and I produced a half-hour video for his site, and it's proved to be very, very popular. Just a few months ago, I went back and kind of redid that content for a video for my own channel, the 9 brand design elements you absolutely need. And I did it in about half the time. So I moved it along a lot faster because I try to do things quickly on my channel because people are time starved. And so I banged it out in about 10 or 15 minutes, I think. And that was the first video I did. Yeah. And then I went on from there.
So I don't know that I was aware you had. So the video that you talked about on Chris Ducker's membership site, Youpreneur, that's in the workshop library, or the.
Yes.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I will go back and check that out. I too am a member of that community for those that are listening. And I'll have all this in the show notes, including the URL to Philip's channel, YouTube channel, and other cool stuff. But I brought that one up too because, as I was saying, or as you pointed out, it's not going to be great at first. And I can see a clear difference in the first one and the second one, and then there's a look after video number 2. There's a look, and then I think it starts to change just a little bit. But yeah, very cool. You can see the evolution just by looking at the. Is that the thumbnail that you? So I'm on a laptop. I want to say it's the thumbnail. It's the screen. It's like the sort of still screen that you see for the video. Is that actually part of the thumbnail artwork? Or is that a different piece?
That is probably just a screen capture from the video. When you see my videos in feed, it'll be the thumbnail. I generally always did. You can, if you record a video and you don't create a thumbnail for it, that is a uploaded artwork that's is the cover page essentially for the video. YouTube will create a thumbnail from some random frame.
Usually one where you're
in your
blinking
video.
and your eyes are rolled back for a second.
Right. Yeah. And that's what it'll give you, but it won't have any copy on it. And the only copy will be on the text description below the thumbnail. So you always want to create a custom thumbnail, so you can control that aspect. And I've always done that. So I'm not sure exactly where you're seeing that.
Yeah, I am looking at the thumbnail. It's funny to even ask because I have been creating them for the 2 YouTube channels that I manage, and but I'm looking at I guess the uploads list, and for some reason the dimension struck me as like, wow, am I looking at the thumbnail or something? That's something that's called something else. But yes, good stuff.
Yeah.
Were playlists part of the strategy, or have they become part of the strategy? And for anyone, if you haven't maybe gotten started yet on YouTube, you can have playlists of the videos. But anyway, yeah, is that part of the strategy?
Well, you can create your own playlists. So I have a personal YouTube channel that you can have playlists that are private, where when I see a video that I like or that I want to watch later, or I want to add to my yoga playlist or whatever, I can create playlists that are private to me. So if I want to collect videos, essentially, I can add them to playlists for my own usage. But then for my channel, for the videos that I publish, I create playlists as well. So I have probably 8 or 12 playlists, from branding, marketing, inspiration, entrepreneurship, design, career advice, things like that. And when I upload a video, I will generally attribute it or check the boxes for, 3 or 4 playlists that it fits into. So if someone subscribes to my channel and then wants to look at just my videos on, design careers, then they can go onto my channel page and go to that playlist and then see the videos that I've designated as being on that subject. It's an easy way to navigate someone's channel when they have a whole lot of content. And so I utilize them on my channel in terms of just, the ability to kind of categorize some of the things that I've done, and also as a service to my viewers if they want to focus in on a particular topic, and without having to look at my, 110 videos, they can find the ones that are all about a particular subject pretty easily. And that's something I recommend everybody do. It's not very time consuming when you're uploading your video to choose playlists that it goes with.
Yeah, it seems intuitive to me, but I was looking at your playlists, and I imagine it's this way for most YouTube channels that have as much content as yours, that it's just organized in a way that I literally looked at the playlists you have that you put together for your content, and I thought, man, this is really well organized, and it looked like it was you put some thought into it, but maybe it was a little more organic than that, and there are just clear delineations of topic matter that you wanted, like you said, for people to be able to sift through and find. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as I went along, I didn't preconceive all the playlists that I have. So when I did a video that was particularly kind of about creative inspiration, I hadn't done one, and it was my first one out of about 20 videos I've posted. And so I created an inspiration playlist, and I added that one to it. And now, as I've done more and more creative inspiration videos, I've added them to that playlist. So most of my playlists are pretty well populated at this point. Mm-hmm. But depending on if I do a subject, video on a subject that I haven't done, or is fairly new, or begs to have its own kind of categorization, then I'll add it.
Cool. You do not currently have a podcast of your own, is that right?
I don't do a podcast. And in fact, I did a video on whether you should have a podcast or YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. And when I started off and decided I was going to publish content in one form or another, I had a debate with myself about whether I should do a podcast or whether I should do a YouTube channel. And because I am in the design field, which is a very visual field, it made complete sense to me that I would be using a visual medium. And in talking about design, there's only so much talking you can do about design before you have to start seeing things. So to me, it made a lot of sense. The other part of it, which is, I think, one of the most major arguments for doing video, is that you can, a lot of content development is about repurposing content. So you may start off with a blog post, write an article, and then you may do a video about it, and then you may do a series of tweets about it, and then you may, chop it up into smaller pieces and post it on LinkedIn. When it comes to YouTube videos, you can use just the audio and post it as a podcast if you want. But if you do a podcast, you can't go the other way around because there's no visual that goes along with it. So when I did my YouTube channel, that was really my decision-making criteria in terms of why I chose to do what I did.
Yeah. Now, there is, by the way, for those that are listening, and you may know this and may have said what you said about not going the other way for a very specific reason, in that there's not the visual impact But there are some publishers, mine included, which is Libsyn, that will just YouTube is one of the destinations for distribution. So, and it's funny because I heard from a well-known podcaster, John Lee Dumas. I sat in once just out of curiosity on his. I forgot what he calls it. He's got at the time he had a Facebook group but anyway, he has a sort of getting started podcast school that he does, and I sat in on one, and actually it might have been at the Upreneur Summit in London last year that I heard this from John Lee Dumas, not in that little a group thing he did, but he mentioned posting them on YouTube. So I started looking into it, and I'm like, oh yeah, sure, I can upload the audio content and create a movie. And I was doing this myself for a while, putting some stills in there from my guests, which was kind of cool, but extremely time consuming. And then I found out all that time that Libsyn, my host, would automatically distribute that for me without the visual, the slideshow that I was basically putting in.
Right.
But I'm okay with that because from a time perspective, it was great. And for me, some will feel that there are a gazillion podcasts out there, and some will say that everybody's doing a podcast, but it's still so new. And I find that if you talk to enough people anyway, depending on who your audience is, not everyone gets like how do I get a podcast, but a lot of people get YouTube. and
yeah.
Maybe they even get that better than going to my website to click on a little player. So I thought it'd be great to put it there, and so it happened.
There's one other big argument for using YouTube as a platform, and that is that Google owns it.
Yes.
And YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world, next to Google. And because they are owned by the same company, Google prioritizes YouTube videos in search because they want to drive people to that platform. So if you have content on YouTube, you are driven to a higher level of searchability than you would be if you didn't. And since I've started my channel, I have noticed that the results for design strategy, graphic design, branding, that I am showing up much higher in search than I used to, and I'm not doing anything markedly different in my SEO for my website. I have been, putting out a lot more content in general, but I firmly believe that my YouTube work has elevated my showing up in search. One of the things that I just noticed recently, which I thought was hilarious, was I was doing a search for the word creative director, and for some reason I clicked on the images, Google image search, and of a thumbnail for my "What does a creative director do?" video is the very first result for creative director, for the word creative director in Google Images.
Nice.
Which I thought was hilarious, because after that video thumbnail are 50 pictures of famous creative directors, and it's just kind of bizarre. But that goes to show that Google is recognizing that kind of keyword in that video, and also the popularity of that video, and is making it in through its algorithms an important search result for the word creative director.
Yep, I just Googled the same. I suspect Google gives us biased search. Well, I know it does, but I suspect sometimes that someone like you or I will see something like that when we Google it, and so I'm always curious when somebody else does it. Now that I'm sitting here talking to you, looking at your YouTube channel, having been to your website earlier today and looked at your name in my email, which is Gmail, and my calendar, they may have done the same to me, but there you are, the first one.
There you go.
Yep.
Well, I had my wife do it too, just to check, to make sure it wasn't like my cookies or my or something like that made it come up.
It's a great picture too when you sort of look at the first page results,
just
just in terms of the impact.
There you go.
Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, and on repurposing content, this has been a really cool thing for me over the last year, but it's funny, I think it takes practice to to get really, really good at it. So you mentioned that, and boy, it is it's a beautiful thing when you get it down. But I catch myself missing opportunities still. So like I said, I think it takes practice, just like doing the videos.
Yeah, and Roberto, I don't think that you can be perfect at it. I mean, you can take a piece of content, and there are more than a dozen ways that you could repurpose it, and there's no number of hours in the day that would give you enough time, unless you had a team of 20 like Gary Vaynerchuk, to repurpose your content on every platform and every place that you'd want it to be. Mm-hmm. I'm a firm believer in kind of experimenting, and then when you find what works for you, to leverage that and try to simplify it as much as possible. I have, a certain pathway for the repurposing that I do, and I do it the same every time, so people can understand and start to expect that in, consistency. But if I tried to be everywhere all the time, or if I was very scattershot about it and did one thing, one time and a different thing the next time, it gets confusing for you, the content creator. It also gets confusing for your audience. And it doesn't create a regular presence on whatever platforms it is that you are repurposing to.
Yeah. Can you elaborate on your repurposing pathway, or just give us an idea of what that looks like?
Sure. Well, I have a newsletter. So I have a newsletter called Brand Muse that comes out every 2 weeks, and I've been publishing that for almost 3 years now. And I write it's a 200-word small little muse about branding or design or marketing. And when I put that newsletter out, I take that article, that blog post, essentially, I post it on my blog, on my website as a blog post. I also post it as an article on Medium. I post it as an article on LinkedIn. And so that's kind of the extent of where that particular piece of writing goes. So that goes in my newsletter, goes on my website, goes on LinkedIn, goes on Medium. So it goes 4 different places. When I do a video, it really just goes to YouTube. But I've recently just had all of my first 100 videos transcribed, and I'm in the process of rewriting those transcriptions to articles. And I've published maybe 4 or 5 up until this point. One of the things that I realized in doing that, though, I thought it was going to be very kind of plug and play, like you get this great transcript and then you just sign your name to it and post it. Well, I found out that verbal transcriptions of podcasts or YouTube videos, they don't read like articles. They read much more conversationally, and they don't flow the way articles do, well-written content. So I'm actually using a copywriter to kind of rejigger and re-edit my transcripts of my videos and in turning them into articles. And again, once I have that turned into an article, I publish that on Medium, publish it on LinkedIn as an article, and I also publish it on my blog.
Beautiful. What is the criteria for publishing on Medium? Is there one, or is it, I just have kind of gotten familiar with it and just in reading some content, the quality of stuff that goes on there is really great, but is it like LinkedIn that, if you have some sort of account profile there, you can publish stuff, or is it sort of different criteria?
Yep, it's that simple. Wow. And I haven't put a tremendous amount of effort into promoting my Medium presence. And there are people who have huge followings on Medium. I don't. I think I just show, I utilize hashtags a lot. So my content will show up when people search marketing or brand strategy or, any number of the other hashtags I use. But I don't have a direct large subscribership there yet. And I'm just letting that grow organically, kind of how I've done YouTube. And that's another thing we could talk about today, Roberto, is kind of how you drive people to your content.
That would be great. Before you go there, I have one more question.
Yeah.
Just on transcription. So you're using a copywriter. Are you using YouTube to do the initial transcription, or a third-party service or tool?
I'm using a third-party tool. It's called Rev, R-E-V.
Okay, yeah.
And that you just upload the video to their site, and in my case, it comes back in about 5 minutes. It's amazing. And it's incredibly cheap. They've even just lowered their prices. It's less, I think, an 7, 8 minute video costs me about $6 or something to transcribe. Yeah. And the transcription is flawless.
Yeah, they do a nice job. And I don't know if they're still doing it, but I learned a while back that for those that are listening that YouTube, you can transcribe from YouTube using a closed captioning feature, but I don't know if it's as good as what Rev does, and I have used Rev for another scenario, and it was really nice.
Yeah, I know that YouTube has that. I haven't taken advantage of that yet. There are a few things that I'm on my to-do list that I want to do. One is when you post your videos on LinkedIn, which I also do, you can post them so there is subtitles. So if it starts auto-playing in someone's feed, that they, can read what you're saying without having the sound up. And that's something I have to learn how to do and start doing as well. That's
cool. Well, one thing's for sure, if you are thinking of doing transcription, using Rev is just it's easy. It's easy to get going right away, and it's very affordable. There's a learning curve, so a time investment with the YouTube transcription, but it's not that bad, as I recall. Okay, you were saying before I interrupted you, we were going to talk about.
Oh, I was just saying I was going to kind of segue into, how you drive people to your content, wherever that is. Because I've had good experiences. I've had false starts with that, and I'm all about sharing failures so other people can learn from mistakes, or at least learn how to evaluate whether something is a mistake or not. Sure. And I'm not going to say it's a mistake. It's really more learning. But when I first started my YouTube channel, one of the things that I did was I was promoting it on Twitter and driving people from Twitter to my YouTube channel. That's what I was attempting to do anyway. And I was utilizing Hootsuite to, I wrote 10 unique tweets a week with links to my video. And I schedule them to go out and, a couple times a day. So, 2 tweets a day for 5 days, driving people to my weekly video. And I did that for, I want to say 6 months, 8 months. And after a while, I was looking at my YouTube analytics. I started using an application called TubeBuddy, which I will highly recommend for anyone who has a YouTube channel. Money super well spent. I was looking at my YouTube analytics and where I was getting my source traffic. And YouTube will tell you whether you're getting it from externally, from websites, if you're getting it from internal search, if you're getting it from, keywords, whether it's if it's coming from a particular social platform. And I noticed that I was getting almost zero traffic from Twitter. But here I was getting a whole lot of people retweeting my stuff and liking my stuff and commenting on my tweets about my videos. And it was a real eye-opener because I thought that, and this is why I wasn't checking my analytics. I was thinking that because people were retweeting and commenting and liking my tweets on my videos, that they were actually clicking through to the video and watching the video. Well, it turns out that they weren't, and that I wasn't really getting any traffic from Twitter. And I was putting a tremendous amount of effort and time into writing and publishing those tweets and trying to drive traffic to YouTube. And after a while, I realized I was talking to a bunch of marketers who were all talking to other marketers, and that everyone was talking and no one was listening, or at least no one was being driven from my tweets anyway to my videos. So I stopped doing it. I just completely walked away from Twitter. I do tweet articles, curated content that I want to share with other people periodically. But I found that for me anyway, Twitter wasn't, a really good use of my time. And so that was a huge learning for me. So, what I would recommend to other people is, don't wait 6 months to check your analytics of where your traffic is coming from on YouTube, and try to, amplify and leverage the parts that are working as much as you can. And another way I drove people to my channel was through my newsletter. So as I said, I started a newsletter about 9 months before I started my YouTube channel. And when I started my YouTube channel, I started putting links to my videos in my newsletter, just a video, each newsletter, and letting people know that I had a YouTube channel now, and then also driving them there. And I have my agency has a Facebook page as well, so I would publish, links to my videos there too. So the places where I was, getting exposure and traffic and had followers, I was promoting my channel.
Interesting. I have been using Twitter as part of the efforts to bring up awareness and drive some listeners to the podcast. So you bring up a good, point. See where, as best you can, where traffic is coming from with the analytics, and look at your analytics from multiple points, from all the points of view that you have, to look at them. I have been recently on that, topic, questioning have I been marketing in the right places altogether. I do believe I know who the audience is, but you brought your email list up again, or your newsletter, and I think that is an important reminder to build the list.
Mm-hmm. And my YouTube channel has done more to build my list than anything else.
Talk about that if you could.
Sure. When I first started doing my videos, I had no calls to action. I wasn't promoting anything. I wasn't driving anyone to a product, and I realized very quickly that I was kind of leaving a lot of attention off the table. And so I started the practice of using cards and annotations, which are things that you can add to videos as little click-through links that show up on the video as it's playing, to drive people to my website and also to drive people to a sign-up page for my newsletter. And then at the tail end of every single video, I thank everyone for watching, and I also invite them to sign up for my newsletter that they can do through my website, and give the URL of my website, and do a 1-minute blurb about what I do in my newsletter. And so every single view that goes to the end of my YouTube video gets a promotion to drive people to my newsletter sign-up page, and that has been incredibly successful. As soon as I started doing that, I saw a exponential rise in the number of sign-ups I was getting a day. And as my channel has gotten more popular, my newsletter subscribership has gone up just about, hand in hand. I mean, I don't have close to as many subscribers on my newsletter as I do on YouTube. But, comparatively, they have grown at similar rates.
Yeah, that's very cool. And we may have talked about it in the last episode, but again, for anybody who's missing it, I think it would be very cool. Can you talk about the... you know what? Maybe I didn't hear you say this. You are inviting people to sign up for the email newsletter, tell them about the website, explaining very briefly what the newsletter is all about, using the cards. You're using the cards to drive people to the website. And then I was about to ask about the opt-in, the giveaway, the cool resource that you do. That is strictly, is that strictly on your website, but you're getting them there through the YouTube channel by and large?
Yes. Yeah, so one of the cards that I use on my videos is to a lead magnet that I use, which is a small PDF download, and I call it a mini ebook, so people can go to download that ebook, and if they sign up and give me the email address, then I deliver to them in that first email a link to download this ebook. And so that's been successful too. I've used a whole lot of different kinds of lead magnets or free giveaways that have added to my email list through my videos. So for instance, I've done videos on brand pyramids, which are a strategic branding tool, or SWOT analysis, so strength, weakness, opportunity, threat analysis, another strategic tool, or brand positioning statement, another strategic tool that's used in branding. And I've created free PDF giveaways that are that are form-based. So, I mean, if there's a brand positioning statement, it would have blanks that you could fill out in the PDF. And so those are all lead magnets that I give away as assets to anyone who wants to, download them. And in order to download them, they have to sign up for my list. And, you get your usual people who sign up for the list and then immediately unsubscribe. But for the most part, it seems like people stay.
Very cool. Yeah, I started, after our last conversation, I started looking at the cards and annotations, and there were a couple of little setup things I needed to work on and started. It's time for me to go back and revisit and continue that so that I can start leveraging them too as I put out some content. That's really good stuff, very helpful. And then I guess the last thing I was hoping we could talk about, I believe before we hit record, we were discussing the idea of shifting audience or the shifting audience, and I brought it up. I do this a lot lately. I think it was before we hit record, or maybe I did talk about it. But basically,
did we talk about this?
Yeah, basically, I was mentioning to you that the audience that has become the audience for my Unstarving Musicians podcast isn't who I thought they were initially, and it's still kind of early. That could evolve, but so you thought that would be a cool thing to talk about in relation to. I believe the YouTube channel, but you had some thoughts on that. Can you please share them?
Yeah, and I've been the guest on a number of other podcasts as well, and I also started an interview series on my YouTube channel. So I've been interviewing social media and marketing and design experts in their fields on my YouTube channel, doing video interviews. And one of the things that I've recognized and seen and heard about from some of the people I've been interviewing has been how their channels have evolved over time. One is a guy named Lee Jackson, who had a well-regarded podcast called WordPress Innovators. And he just kind of shifted gears and rebranded his podcast to be called Agency Trailblazers. So instead of just being focused on WordPress development, it's now being focused on the larger design agency and web development community. And so, his podcast was doing very well. He had a very specific audience, but then he decided that he wanted to broaden that. And again, a lot of his listeners were saying, I'd love to hear more about the agency life and, what you do and how you get clients, and kind of outside of that very kind of confined WordPress topic that he had named his podcast after. And so he needed to rebrand his podcast, which he did. And now he can talk about a much broader range of topics. And I never would have been on his podcast if it hadn't been him doing that, because I'm not a WordPress expert, and that's not my fashion. So that's one example of kind of that shift. Another great example is a YouTube social media kind of expert that I've followed from the very beginning. Before I even had my channel, it was a woman named Amy Schmidauer. Her name used to be Amy Schmidauer. It's now Amy Landino. She got married, changed her name. She used to have a very popular channel called Sexy Savvy Social, which was all about social media marketing. And she was doing very well with that channel for a long period of time. She has a very specific kind of quirky, snarky editing style, and it was very entertaining to watch. And she did mostly just vlogging on social media. And she got a lot of attention for her ability to build an audience and to vlog. And so she ended up writing a book called Vlog Like a Boss. Great book. If you haven't read it, you should check it out. Yep. And so now she's she was an expert on YouTube, and she kind of rode that horse for about a year. And then she realized, and she was talking about this on my interview with her on my YouTube channel. I have a video interview with Amy, which you should check out if you haven't.
I will. I
And
like Amy.
it's a really insightful interview on this topic in particular. And she noticed that she was getting a lot of traction and a lot of viewership on her more lifestyle type of videos. So she was doing videos on time management and on, life inspiration topics, and, how she prepares for her day, and, how she stays inspired, and, what books she's reading, and things that were not, marketing focused. And so she decided, and maybe it was because she'd been doing the marketing thing for, 6 or 8 years, she wanted to kind of expand to pivot to doing something else. I think some of it had to do with the fact that she wanted to continue to grow her audience, and she was seeing that there was a larger audience, and she was getting more traction with that audience in her more lifestyle-focused content. So she has consciously made a shift to start to develop more lifestyle-focused content. And her customer avatar she has a very clear image of her avatar, her age, it is her gender. And in doing, making that shift and pivot to new content, she has turned her back on a certain audience that she probably had, who was, super interested in marketing or vlogging, and, has consciously, shaved them off. And I would say that, I'm one of those. I used to look at her videos a lot, and now that they're all lifestyle focused for a female target, they don't fit with what I'm interested in. So I'm not really a follower of hers anymore, but I don't fault her for that. She's doing what's right for her business. But I think it's a really interesting example of, over time, a brand and a focus and shifting and evolving with, number one, your own interests. So what's going to keep your passion going and your fire lit under you, but also the traction and the level of interest that you're getting in your audience, and finding out, where that is coming from.
That is interesting. I am a fan of Amy's, and I didn't even realize she'd made that shift, but consequently I haven't seen a lot of videos on vlogging, which would, now I understand why. And funny thing too, I met her last year at the Youpreneur Summit in London, and I believe she must have been at the tail end of writing the vlogging like a boss era of her career. But that's really cool. I look forward to seeing that. She's pretty amazing, and that content that she created for all things, YouTube vlogging is pretty awesome, pretty good stuff. So I will make sure to put her in the show notes as well.
Yeah, absolutely do that. And she's rebranded her channel as well, which I thought was really gutsy. Number one, she changed her name. That was hard enough.
Well, she got married.
But for her brand, because people knew her by her name. Mm-hmm. And, when your brand is your name, it's like selling your brand. I mean, you're leaving it behind. She had a huge level of brand recognition in the Schmidhauer name, and changing it to Landino. I can't imagine the amount of design that she had to do, just to rebrand a lot of her social media and her content to reflect that.
It's pretty amazing. And I have to say that probably the timing of all that stuff happening, the marriage, the idea to go toward the lifestyle shift, the opportunity to rebrand, they must have also just come together, just based on what I know about the timing of these events in her life. Mm-hmm. So very interesting. And even when I look at the first still for the video, it's really interesting. I can totally recognize her, but she looks different.
Yeah. And that's, and I think that this is, we're talking about one particular person, but I think that the larger lesson here for your listeners is that brands evolve. Yep. Every single brand in the world evolves over time. And a lot of people hesitate or hesitate to start analysis paralysis, because they don't know exactly what it is that they want to do, or they aren't sure that thing that they have an idea to do, they'll be able to do forever, or that they'll want to do forever. And the thing about it is that you just have to start. You have to get out there and follow your passion and understand that, your passion will evolve, your audience will evolve, and you'll need to evolve with it. And that's just the nature of life. But to have that keep you from starting or keep you from getting going is one of the things that I see in my audience and that I see out there in the world with people who are trying to establish personal brands or get started in content, is that they have this hesitation that is keeping them from starting because it's a failure to decide. It's a failure to decide on what it is you're going to start with, and a failure to decide on just starting.
Yeah, and I'll share one of my biggest hesitations that I'm sure someone else can relate to, at least one person listening to this, but and I've gotten over it, but that was like, I don't have I just don't have the right backdrop to work with for my videos. And I'd already started once before. I did a start-stop, right? I found the best place that I have available at my home office right now, and that's going to work for a while. And I'm going to work on the more perfect space as time goes on. But that's been something for me. And then, of course, there's a little bit of other stuff too, like, is anybody going to believe anything I say?
Yeah, imposter syndrome.
Yep. It's all
that's a thing too.
Totally.
Well. And the funny thing is imposter syndrome, you probably want to wrap this up, but imposter syndrome affects some of the most high power people I've worked with in branding. I was working with someone who was, associated with the Obama administration, and very, very high powered executive. And she, making, more than probably $500,000 a year, still had this incredibly kind of fragile internal point of view about her self-worth. So it doesn't matter how accomplished you are. You can be just out of school, or you can be, well into a very successful career. There is a level of imposter syndrome that everybody experiences at one time or another. So don't let that stop you either.
Yeah, I'm hearing that more and more lately too, with the highly successful and those who appear to most of us to have it completely dialed in, that they too suffer from that. So it's comforting, but it's kind of funny to think about it on the different scales to it, which it occurs, you versus them or her or him. So,
right. Yeah.
Philip, great stuff. Thank you so much. Man, you gave me a lot of good videos to check out that I'm going to be sure to put in the show notes. I think I'll do some of that by playlist and recommendation, and I know where to tell everyone to find you at your website at philipvandusen.com, and I'll be sure to put that there, and everything you have they can find from there, including some of the videos right on your website, which is great.
Yes, and I would also just add that if you go to philipvandusen.com/muse, MUSE, that is the direct page to sign up for my newsletter. So, and you can also get that free, downloadable 9 design elements your brand absolutely positively needs right there. And I think that you'll like it.
Excellent. Thank you so much for adding that. I think they will definitely like that. Philip, thank you again for your time today.
Roberto, thank you so much for having me back. This has been great.
Absolutely. Take care. Thanks again for listening. If you like what you heard today, subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Would you like to get an occasional email from me with tips and hacks that I'm learning from guests of this podcast? This is all stuff that you can use to grow your business. You'll get an email about once a week. You can unsubscribe at any time, and I will never send you anything spammy. Just go to partnerforleads.blog. You can sign up right there, and that's partner singular, 4, LEADS.blog. Thinking about starting your own referral group? Wondering how you'll manage your online presence, memberships, fees, reporting metrics? Are you struggling to get in front of the right clients? Struggling to spread the word about your new business? Starting a referral leads group is a great way to expand your prospect list, and you could even meet your next client within a few short days. What have you got to lose? Visit partnerforleads.blog/startup to sign up for a free, no obligation 15-minute consult. Until next time.